a couple miles downhill from the gas station. Deeper into the woods, a dirt path intersects the main road. If you didn't know what you were looking for, you'd almost certainly miss it. The path winds through the wilderness until you come upon a metal gate, a scarecrow tied on with rusty barbed wire, and a "Do Not Enter" sign posted on the tree nearby. To get through, you'd have to leave your car and manually pull the gate open. Somewhere beyond that, you'll find an old dome-shaped metal building with no windows. This empty compound is all that's left of the old mathematist community. Hidden within those metal walls are the creepy decorum of a building too bleak for ghosts to haunt. Rows of bunk beds, milk crates with minimal personal effects, and not much else. The mathematists lived a humble lifestyle when they were around, and when they left, they didn't leave much behind other than this dilapidated structure and some strange memories. And of course, Jerry. We pulled up in front of the premise and looked in. We pulled up in front of the premises and took it all in. It was just as spooky now as it had been the last time I was here. But somehow, I'd never been more scared of this place than I was right now. I searched for any signs of life. "You think the boar's still in there?" Rosa asked. "Probably." I wasn't exactly ready for whatever could be waiting inside, but time was never less on my side than now. So I gripped the baseball bat, took a deep breath to steel my resolve, then said to Rosa, "Okay, let's do this. You stay in the car until I give the all clear. If you hear anything crazy, get out of here without me. This might get messy, and I don't want anyone else dying today." "Wait," she started with that incredulous Rosa has another question voice. "Anyone else? Did somebody die today?" "Wish me luck," I said as I opened the car door and dodged her question altogether. It was go time. This was my chance to see exactly what I was made of. I immediately hit the ground face first. "You okay?" Rosa said. I could hear her open her car door as I pushed myself back up to my feet, using the bat to brace myself. Something was wrong. My muscles weren't reacting properly. I had a splitting headache like my skull was a couple sizes too small. And to top it all off, my vision was laggy and beginning to tunnel. I tried to play through the pain, taking another deep breath and lifting the bat. Rosa put a hand on my arm and repeated her question. "Jack, are you okay? What's going on? Why are your lips purple?" She put her other hand against my forehead. "And why do you feel so cold?" I unzipped the front of my hoodie to see just how bad it was, and Rosa gasped, a little too dramatically, I think, although I could see why she might have been freaked out. The entire front of the Pug Life t-shirt had been ruined, soaked in a big, wet circle of my own blood. "Oh my God!" she screamed. Look, it's okay. I'm just a little woozy. We need to get you to a hospital." No, really, I'm okay. Trust me. I've almost bled to death so many times by now that I'm practically an expert. I've got at least another liter left before we need to get worried. "I'll grab the med kit." The last time we were at the compound was about a month earlier, when Jerry invited O'Brien, Rosa, and me over for a massive bonfire, hot dogs, and fireworks. Technically, he was a squatter there, but we knew that the original inhabitants weren't coming back anytime soon. Jerry gave us the grand tour of the place that he had been calling home for the last half year, proudly showing off the improvements he'd made, including a zip line from the roof onto a pile of leaves nearby, a bowling alley down the center aisle of cots, a mead fermenting station, and the 82-inch flat screen hooked up to a Nintendo 64 in the corner by a pile of beanbag chairs. The whole thing was equal parts awesome and pathetic, and in the end, I couldn't tell if I envied or pitied his setup, but either way, I understood why he didn't want to be here alone, and why he spent so much time at the gas station. During the tour, he also showed us the emergency bunker under a trapdoor by the refrigerator. Inside, the mathematists had stored a few crates of dehydrated food and clean water. as well as ample medical supplies of the non-narcotic variety. I realized that this was probably where Rosa was headed, but in the heat of the moment, she must have completely forgotten what Love had told us. Before I could get out a quick, "Wait, don't," she had already grabbed the front door and pulled it open. The giant hairy pig launched out of the entryway like a cannonball, narrowly missing Rosa as it came bounding towards me. I didn't have the reaction speed to do more than brace myself before a collision that sent me spiraling back to the ground again. My back hit the dirt, knocking the wind right out of me. And then a line of 6 tiny piglets bounced out of the door behind the sow, jumping on and over me as they chased their mother into the woods. I sat up to see that my prosthetic had taken the brunt of the impact, with a large tusk hole torn into my pants leg. I pulled it to me, surprised and impressed that it managed to stay attached. I considered myself lucky that the pig attacked the one part of my body where I couldn't feel pain, and for the briefest of moments, I wondered if this situation would have been much worse if I still had my original leg. There was a beautiful irony in the thought that Spencer may have indirectly saved me from a serious injury. Rosa asked, "Was that?" "Yeah, it was adorable, but we should probably keep moving." With that, I pushed myself back up using the baseball bat as a walking cane as we cut straight through the compound, stopping briefly for some medical supplies before leaving through the rear exit. Out back, things were a lot less grim. Jerry had strung up a huge canopy of Christmas lights around a circular fire pit, with the old Mathematist school bus parked on the other side. This was where Jerry was actually living. The seats in the bus were all gone, replaced by a few mattresses and an ample supply of blankets and pillows. A heavy-duty extension cord ran from the building to the bus, where he'd attached a space heater, a hot plate, and a few other home-style comforts. I assumed that he'd stayed out of the main building except for the occasional bathroom or shower visit, and I certainly didn't blame him. It couldn't have been any fun wallowing in the memories that place must have held. I sat on the mattress closest to the bus entrance, and Rosa crouched down in front of me with the medkit. She took a breath, looked me square in the eyes, and said, "Go ahead and take off my shirt." That caught me off guard. "Look, Rosa, I don't know if this is really the time." "The one you're wearing, oh my God." "Oh," I blurted, a little embarrassed. I thought you meant, never mind." "Uh-huh." "I've lost a lot of blood." "Uh-huh." "Okay, then." I went ahead and peeled off both of the blood-drenched shirts. I had to rip them free from my chest wound where the scabs had already started to adhere to the fabric. I'll admit, it hurt like hell, and I may have let out a pathetic squeal in the process. Rosa stared at the wound for a second like she was in a trance. I took a deep breath and realized it might have been slightly worse than I'd originally assessed. I knew Aggie's claws had gone pretty deep, but I didn't realize how much I had bled. "So," I started, "it looks worse than it is because of the blood, and the depth, and the, skin that's missing." Rosa snapped out of it and opened the medkit, taking out a rag and alcohol. "How are you even alive right now?" "Great question." I did my best to hold in my blood, while she cleaned the wounds and applied all the butterfly sutures the medkit had. "Did this guy have Freddy Krueger gloves? How does something like this even happen?" I tried to think up another smart answer, some sterile version of the truth. Close enough to the real story to satisfy her questions, but palatable enough to keep her in the dark, as usual. But then I decided that enough was enough. Why was I still keeping secrets? Maybe it was the insane amount of blood loss playing with my mind, but it was that moment with Rosa literally getting her hands dirty, cleaning up my monster attack wounds, that I decided she needed to hear the truth. No more secrets. "Listen, Rosa, there's something I need to tell you." She stopped what she was doing and looked up into my eyes. "Yeah?" "Actually, there's a lot I need to tell you." "Okay, I'm listening." There's something weird going on at the gas station. Yeah, I already knew that. I work there, remember? No, I mean something really weird. I'm talking end of the world levels of seriousness. Monsters and ghosts and demons kind of weird. And the crazy thing is, you've seen it for yourself. The first night you spent at the gas station, you had a vision and started floating off the ground and announcing prophecies of some ultra mega demon that's supposed to come and bathe the world in pain. But then a shapeshifter wiped your memories and then Spencer Middleton harpooned her and dragged her off. And I think he's the guy that talked Bo into opening a portal to hell. And I think he's collecting monsters. And it's all part of this invasion somehow. And now there's a bunch of people in town who might be unkillable slug vampires. She squinted at me for a second, then said slowly, Okay? I know. It sounds crazy. She smiled and used a voice that was equal parts motherly and patronizing. No, that doesn't sound crazy, not at all. Is there anything else you want to get off your chest? Dead people keep calling me and I have a pet dragon. It was coming back to me now, the reason why I didn't want to tell Rosa the truth. She laughed. Cool. I couldn't help myself. I laughed too. Now, do you want to tell me what really happened last night? Because these cuts look borderline life-threatening, and if I have to pry the information out of you, I will. I don't care who they are. I'll go kneecap the sons of bitches that did this to you right now. The image of Rosa attempting to go John Wick on my attackers gave me some much-needed mental comic relief. I can't be sure, but I think it's that guy who's been trying to buy the gas station. He did this to you? Not exactly. He's been sending people to come out while I'm working and intimidate me. It's been relatively low stakes thus far, but now I think he's decided to step up his game. Why? I mean, why you? I don't know. He probably just hates me. That really doesn't make any sense. Is he trying to make you quit or something? Oh, I forgot to tell you, I'm actually the new owner of the gas station. Her eyes lit up. What? Really? That's amazing news. Congratulations. No, not really. Why not? Well, for one thing, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. There are so many details to running a business. No one will insure the building. There are all these taxes I've never heard of. And not the least of my problems, we don't make any money. Why don't you just sell it to somebody else then? Anyone I sell to will just turn around and sell to Howard. In that case, what's your plan? Plan? Do you have a plan? I figured I'd just wait until he forgot about me and moved on to another town. But now that I'm saying it out loud, I can see why it's not a very good plan. I've been so busy playing defense and losing that I never actually had time to come up with a strategy. Don't worry, we'll figure it out together. Surprisingly, her saying that did make me feel a little better. Like sharing some of the mental load could make this whole thing more bearable. I was beginning to let myself hope that this thing could have a positive outcome if I just relied on my friends. I had no idea how badly I was playing into that old trap and setting myself up for utter disappointment. Ah well. Rosa told me to stay put while she left me alone for a minute and went back into the compound to find a spare blood-free shirt. I took the opportunity to search the bus for any clues about Jerry's disappearance. He'd set up a small table near the back with a hookah on top. Underneath, I was upset to find a cell phone, but no wallet. On the wall next to the mattress with the most pillows, he'd hung a dozen or so photos with kitchen magnets. There were some of me, Rosa, and O'Brien. There were also a few of people I didn't know or recognize. And then there were a couple of Vanessa. It dawned on me that Jerry was absent from all of these photos because he was the one who had taken them. But I tried not to read too far into that. Before I could turn to leave his personal area, I caught a glimpse of something metallic poking out from under his pillow. Interesting. I flipped the pillow over to reveal a small tape player, just like the one he had left me. I remembered what he'd said about having another hour's worth of tapes from the Russian radio back home, but we hadn't yet had the chance to compare notes. With him gone, it would be a good idea for me to go ahead and continue transcribing the tapes myself, just so I'd know who to watch out for. I picked up the tape player to eject the cassette when I saw the folded up sheet of paper underneath with one word written on it. Jack. I hesitated. That was definitely Jerry's handwriting. But why? How did he know I was going to be here, or that I would find this? Was he expecting this? Did he know what happened with Agatha? I had so many questions all of a sudden. Is this how Rosa feels all the time? Well, there was one easy way to find some answers. I reached down and picked up the note, then unfolded it. Inside, he'd written more, but not very much more. Yo, Jack, it's me, Leroy, from work. If you're reading this, I'm probably dead, and you guys are rightfully devastated. But if that happens, you should see what I found. I rewound this tape to the right place for you. Give it a listen, and good luck. Also, whatever you do, don't go inside the compound. It belongs to the pig now. I reread it a few times, looking for any kind of hidden messages, but coming up blank. Jerry definitely knew something was coming for him. It was annoying that this was the best he could do by way of a goodbye note. But then I remembered the note I'd written the night before, the one that was still tucked inside my wallet. My final goodbye message may have been a little longer and more detailed, but the similarities were definitely there. At least I'd left detailed instructions for Jerry to burn down the gas station in the event of my untimely death. Jerry just left this tape recorder. What good could this possibly be? Only one way to find out. I pressed play and the familiar Slavic voice of the man on the radio began to speak. Replaced. Georgia Earhart has been replaced. Amelia O'Brien has been targeted. Oh, crud! Jeremy Pascal has been targeted. Oh, no. Jack Townsend has been targeted. Oh, my. Leland Cruz has been replaced. I don't know who that is. Rosa Vasquez has been... Jack? I nearly jumped out of my skin at the sound of a voice just outside the bus. I quickly pressed the stop button, eject the cassette tape, and stuffed it into my pants pocket. This was why Jerry was so desperate to figure out what the names on the radio meant. This is why he needed my help. He was trying to figure out what targeted meant, because he knew that we were all targeted. Yeah, I said back. Rosa stepped onto the bus, holding a green long sleeve that looked like it might actually fit me. She had a confused look on her face. I tried for a smile. Something wrong, Rosa? What was that noise just now? What noise? Sounded like a voice talking. Oh, I didn't hear anything. Probably just the wind. The wind sounded like a guy with a heavy accent saying our names. Yep. Standing there, all I could do was wonder what the radio was about to say. Rosa Vasquez has been... What? Is it possible she was replaced? Could she actually be one of those things? If so, why hadn't she killed me yet? Unless she was using me for information. Trying to figure out how much I already knew. But why? Why anything? Why did they want to kill me at all? Why does the doctor want the gas station? Why are dead people calling me? Why did Jerry and Rosa kiss each other at the carnival? All I needed was 2 more seconds to hear what the radio was going to say. Why couldn't Rosa have just been a little slower? You're acting weird, she stated. Well, that's not news. I'm always acting weird. You know that. She narrowed her eyes at me and amazingly didn't ask any more questions. You should try this on and see if it fits. It did, and I had no qualms wearing a dead person's shirt. In fact, it seemed oddly appropriate. We should get back to the gas station before the raccoons take advantage of old Bob's inexperience. The entire ride back was uncomfortably silent. She didn't say much, and I was busy trying not to let her know that I suspected she might have been replaced. In this confined space of her car, I'd never be able to use my bat if it came down to another attack. And even if I could, was I capable of attacking something that looked just like Rosa? Probably not. About a mile onto the main road, she broke the silence. Did something happen back there? What? Did I say or do something? No, Rosa, it's just that. I searched for the right words. I'm worried about Jerry. That part wasn't untrue. She turned to me and said, Me too, but I'm sure he's probably... Oh my God, look out! I screamed, pointing at the man standing in the middle of the road up ahead. Rosa jerked the steering wheel to the side, tires skidding against the pavement, as we narrowly missed him by a foot. She jerked the wheel back to the side to correct, and we went off the shoulder for just a second, and then we got back onto the road. That guy had appeared out of nowhere and was walking right down the middle of the street like he wanted to cause an accident. What the hell is wrong with that guy? Rosa screamed as we drove away. Who was that? I watched the figure shrink into my side mirror as I answered. I have no idea. It was a lie, of course. I recognized him the second I saw him. Our eyes made brief contact, and I watched him smile before we narrowly jerked out of a head-on collision. Should I go back and see if he's okay? Absolutely not. I'll call the cops when we get to the station. Let's keep going. We continued on, and I considered myself lucky. Lucky that we'd missed him. Lucky that Rosa didn't insist we go back to check on him. Lucky that she didn't recognize that the man walking in the street was Farmer Jr., back from the dead. We pulled into the gas station parking lot a minute later, and I was out the door and rushing inside before the car had even stopped. The plan was for me to get to the tape recorder ASAP, snag it, and hide out in the bathroom until I could listen to the cassette in my pocket and find out what the Russian radio had said about Rosa. If she had been targeted like the rest of us, cool. If she had been replaced like evil Aggie Sistrunk, then, well, I didn't really want to think about that what if. But as soon as I crossed the threshold, I froze. Rosa was close behind me, and when she saw who I was looking at, she also froze. Yo, nerds! Jerry called out from behind the counter. Hey, did we hire old Bob as a new cashier? Because if not, that guy is getting a little too comfortable around the cash register. Rosa ran up to the counter and dove across it, wrapping him in a big hug. He shot me a confused expression and asked, Did I miss something? I wanted to allow myself that same sense of relief that Rosa was feeling, but after what I'd seen, I couldn't. Obviously, this might not be the real Jerry or the real Rosa. I'd need to study him closely. The first thing I noticed about this man presenting himself as Jerry was how he looked like somebody had recently used his face as a punching bag. His left eye was red and bloodshot, with several deep purple bruises on either side of his head, and a cut above his brow not quite covered by 2 Hello Kitty Band-Aids. Oh, and he had a tampon stuffed up one of his nostrils, presumably to stop bleeding, but let's not jump to any conclusions. He patted Rose on the back, but she wouldn't release her cling. As I approached the counter, maybe Jerry took the words right out of my mouth. Dude, what the hell happened to you? Wow, that was close. I almost blurted out the truth before I caught myself and remembered that Rosa was still here. I got into a fight. What happened to you? Same. He lifted a bottle of tequila to his lips and took a generous swig. Do you want some? No, I'm good. I've got some other medicine too. Quick question. Am I covered in spiders right now? Not that I can see. That's a relief. He put the bottle on the counter, then wrapped his arms around Rosa and said in a soft voice, Rosa, sweetie, I'm glad to see you too, but you're squeezing me really tight and I think I've got a broken rib or 3, so if you don't mind. She disconnected, grabbing him by the shoulders and shook him violently, screaming, What the hell is wrong with you two? Jerry, I'd concluded that this must have been Jerry, looked at me, then at her, then muttered defensively, Ain't nothing wrong with us. Today was supposed to be my day off. I had plans. I was going to make French toast and drink a bottle of wine and binge Game of Thrones. What the hell happened after I went to bed? I had never been more scared in my entire life. You two are giving me gray hair. Did you know that? We both offered her a sheepish sorry. At the same time, then Jerry added, Jinx, you owe me a Coke. She was now on the verge of angry tears. "Will you please tell me what's going on?" He took another swig, then announced, "Okay, gather around. Make some coffee and get comfortable. I've got a story to tell." Right then, the door opened and a customer stepped inside. A young guy with thick red glasses. Jerry immediately screamed, "Hey, you! Get the hell out of here, we're closed!" The guy turned and looked at the door, then back at us. But the sign says..." "I don't care what the sign says. I said get the hell out." Jerry grabbed a handful of pralines and threw them all at the guy, who promptly turned and ran out the door. I watched as he hurried to his car and sped away before I asked, "Did you know that guy?" "Nope. I just didn't feel like dealing with any customers." "Oh, man. We are going to go out of business so fast." The story, if you were to believe Jerry's account, was pretty crazy, even by our standards. However, this was Jerry talking, so take it with a pound of salt. While I was battling to the death with Miss Sistrunk, Jerry was busy getting kidnapped by two mercenaries in body armor. They were both 6.5 feet tall, covered in face tattoos, and built like Stone Cold Steve Austin's angrier big brother. They ambushed him at the Mathematis compound in the middle of his daily weapons training, which consisted of cutting pumpkins in half with a katana. Unlucky for them, this meant he was already ready to defend himself. When he saw that they were both carrying machine guns, he used his sword to slice the weapons in half, and then when the bigger guy tried to pull a can of mace on him, he chopped it with the katana, causing it to explode into a fireball. I tried to explain to Jerry that neither of those things made any sense, but he calmly asked me to hold my questions until the end. After an epic battle where Jerry very nearly won, and probably would have if he wasn't so tired from all the pumpkin slicing, the bounty hunters got lucky and managed to subdue him. Once he was tied up and on the ground, they took turns punching and kicking him into compliance before dragging him to their truck. Once he'd regained consciousness, he realized that these men were obviously working for an old nemesis of his, and they were taking him to a torture dungeon for experimenting. I took this as code for they were hired by my parents to take me back home, but he didn't want Rosa to know those details, so I kept my mouth shut. Why not? What harm can one more secret do? Jerry proceeded to jujitsu his way out of the situation, but after the truck crashed and sank into a swamp, Jerry went running into the Everglades in an attempt to lose the men. Quick note, we aren't located anywhere near the Everglades. The drugs and alcohol must have really started to kick in at this point, because his story began taking some very weird twists and turns. Look, I'm not going to waste your time with all the details, but there were sharks and a ninja and several more explosions. In the end, the important takeaway from his story was this. The men weren't going to be bothering him anymore, and there was a Waffle House somewhere out there that Jerry was no longer welcome at. He ended his tale with, "And that's exactly how it all happened. Feel free to applaud now." Rosa clapped, but I wasn't in the mood. This account of events may have been entertaining under other circumstances, but all I wanted to know was if Jerry was really okay, and if the danger had passed, or if there was something else for me to stay on the lookout for. I pointed at the line of blood trailing down from the gash above his brow and told him, "Your head wound is bleeding." He looked at me with drunken eyes and in a confused expression and asked, "I have a head wound?" Rosa exhaled loudly in annoyance before announcing to the room, "I guess I'll do what I do now. Let me go get the med kit. It's not like there are any hospitals or emergency rooms in this stupid town. No, let me just be the designated gas station nurse. It's not like I..." She continued talking to herself the whole way out of the building to the car. Now that I had a moment alone with Jerry, I needed to ask him a few things, and in a hurry too, because Rosa was surprisingly time efficient when she was distressed. "Level with me, dude. What really happened last night?" "What I said." He looked away and trailed off with, "Basically, you fought a ninja using a shark as a weapon." "Oh, no." I guess that part might not have actually happened. Or maybe it did. Who's to say? I think the men who nabbed you came into the store first. Stingy bounty hunters. They may have bugged the place to try and find you. How did you really get away? It was easy. Once I remembered that they were doing all of that for the money and not for honor or sport, all I had to do was pay them more than my parents so that they'd leave me alone. They actually turned out to be pretty cool. They even dropped me off here on their way out of town. I didn't want to tell you guys the truth because I didn't want Rosa to know that I was rich. Why not? He said this next part like I was stupid for even asking. Because it's embarrassing. Wow. I finally discovered something that can embarrass Jerry. And of course it was the last thing I'd ever have expected. What about you? What really happened to your face? Because I know you didn't get into a fight. You wouldn't fight a fly, you pacifist little cupcake. I was attacked by Agatha Sistrunk. I had to beat her to death with a fire extinguisher. Then again with a Louisville slugger. Nice. Go on. Well, this guy from town saw me do it and got the wrong idea because the next thing I know, he's shooting at me. But then she came back from the dead as a freaky slug monster and ate him. And now he's back too. Man, isn't that just the worst? And they both got away too. I thought she was coming for you next. We went out to your place and... Wait! He interrupted. You didn't go inside, did you? Yeah, we did. Was Milton Friedman okay? That's what I named my attack boar. It's an attack sow, and it's a mom now. Whoa. This is a lot of info coming at me, and I'm either drunker than I am high, or higher than I am drunk, but I'm not sure. Did you see the just in case I die note I left behind? Yes, I wanted to ask you about that. Did you find my porn stash? No. Really? It was right there in the open. Did you even look? I listened to most of the tape, but I need to know. Has Rosa been replaced? The doors opened, and Rosa walked back inside, carrying the mathematist medkit. Jerry laughed and said to me, Anyway, I think that's what Jean-Paul Sartre meant when he said the agony of existentialism. Hey, Rosa, welcome back. We missed you. She put the kit on the counter and snapped it open. What were you two talking about? Jerry blurted out, sports. At the same time I said, philosophy. Jerry quickly covered by announcing, the philosophy of sports. She peeled off Jerry's band-aids with a doubtful, uh-huh. Anyway, Jack, to answer your question, no, I don't think that sports ball team has replaced any of its players, or at least they haven't announced it yet. I felt like a weight had been lifted. Rosa hadn't been replaced. Yet. Now I could move down the list to the next most pressing concern. Jerry, if those guys were looking for you at the gas station, surely there are more where they came from. We'll just have to burn that bridge when we get to it then, won't we? In the meantime, do you guys mind if I take a little nap? I'm feeling a little worn out from all the heroics and alcohol and drugs. I'm just going to curl up right here and... He slid out of his chair and fell underneath the counter without finishing his sentence. Rosa looked at me with eyes opened wide. What do we do now? Now we get him the hell out of here. We tried to wake him up, but once it became clear that reviving him wasn't an option, she and I both took an arm and dragged him outside to her car and stuffed him inside. She tried to talk to me into going with them back to her place, but I told her that I couldn't leave. Somebody had to stay behind and watch the gas station. After they'd driven off, I picked up the store phone and tried O'Brien's number one last time, but it went straight to voicemail. An entire month passed before the next encounter. That month was easily the longest of my life up to that point. Each day dragged worse than the last. Every customer that came through those doors could have been one of them, and I knew it. Howard never let up his pressure either. Anytime I started to think I was getting a handle on the situation, he'd send another goon to the store, always when I was alone. O'Brien wasn't much help. She wasn't much of anything. Now that I was able to drive myself around again, we barely even saw one another, except for those moments when she'd stop by to check on me and drink a cup of free coffee. but even those visits were getting noticeably shorter and colder. I tried asking her what she was working on, but she let me know that she wasn't able to talk about it, and that I needed to leave it alone for my own good. Once upon a time, I would have been happy to leave it alone. The old Jack wouldn't have even needed to have been told. But not anymore. Now I was fighting old women monsters and listening to the Russian radio tapes on repeat, searching for clues. The thought hit me one cold and lonely night that I was different. And maybe, just maybe, I had been replaced. But that's pretty crazy, right? Amelia O'Brien has been targeted. Jeremy Pascal has been targeted. Jack Townsend has been targeted. Leland Cruz has been replaced. Rosa Vasquez has been targeted. I listened to those tapes 1,000 times, but nothing ever changed. On one particularly desperate night, I even attempted to rebuild the radio, but whatever providence possessed Jerry that time he put it together in the first place, it wasn't reproducible. Maybe that was for the best. Suspiciously, nothing unexplained happened during that month. No new phone calls from the dead, no more slug-eating monsters, no creepy visitors or cameos from my long-dead friends. It was terrifyingly dull, like the calm before the storm. As if every terrible thing that ever wanted to hurt us was rallying, readying to attack all at once the second we let our guard down. I tried to occupy my mind with things other than the impending doom. I read a couple of books about how to run a small business and quickly realized how much we were doing wrong. Turns out, a lot. Apparently, we were supposed to be filing state sales tax reports every month, and there's something really confusing about payroll deductions required by the IRS. To get around that, I started paying all of the remaining employees in cash. But soon we started hitting other financial snags. The credit card processing companies were first to send final notices. As a result, we had to stop accepting credit and debit cards altogether. For a business like a gas station, that's what you might call a major inconvenience. Our supply vendors were the next to complain about what I was attempting to pass off as a small payment hiccup. The old owners' accounts were drained, and now they weren't able to automatically draft their expenses. They put up a big fuss until I told them I'd pay them all in cash, too. And just like that, the gas station was a cash-only establishment, which would have been fine except that we had more going out than coming in. And once we ran out of real money, I had to try handing out IOUs. Somehow that worked for way longer than it should have. But then Dr. Asshead moved on to threatening my suppliers. Very soon word got out that our business was far less trouble than the worth, and the vendors stopped vending. Just one more nail in the coffin full of nails. And in no time, we were running on the ghosts of fumes. I had to start purging the payroll of all non-vital employees. Most of our part-timers were very understanding. Only a couple death threats. Even Jerry didn't seem to mind the fact that I couldn't pay him anymore. I fired so many people, and at the end of that first month, I was the only one still working there. You'd think that Rosa would have packed it in and left around this point, but no, she stuck around. Of course, she had to get another job waitressing in the next town over, but after her shifts, she'd stop by and bring me and Jerry some food, or help us clean, or do whatever else there was to do. When I wasn't on the lookout for monsters or driving the business into the ground, I was planning that birthday party for Jerry. It was a welcome distraction in this trying time, but I still did a piss-poor job of it. I'd done my best to track down and invite everybody on his guest list, which included, among others, the bathroom cowboy, the Rat King, whoever the hell that is, all of the clowns from the carnival, Rocco, Arnold, the retired deputy turned falconer, Greg Walton, my one-time attempted kidnapper, any remaining Kiefers, and Chris Pratt. In the end, I had exactly 2 RSVPs, not including myself, Rosa and O'Brien. All in all, I considered that a success. On the morning of Jerry's birthday, Dr. Howard decided to come back to the store in person for a one-on-one chat. I was by myself behind the counter trying to figure out how to log into the state tax website. Spoiler, I never figured it out. When he moseyed up to my counter, he slowly took it all in, then used that annoyingly smug foghorn leghorn impersonation he called a voice. "What are we doing here, Jack? What's the point of all this? You're clearly in over your head. You're not just hurting yourself anymore. Your friends are worried about you, you know? And this dick measuring contest is ruining their lives. Now is the time to get over your pride and do the right thing." He put a contract in front of me. Little yellow post-its, marking the places where I should sign, to legally hand the business over to him. He'd made a point to highlight and even circle the proposed sale price. More money than I've ever earned in my entire life combined. Sure, that's not saying much, but this was truly an absurd amount. I'm doing just fine. In fact, business is booming. The doctor raised his eyebrows and slowly turned in a complete circle, looking the entire place over again with a smile before saying, "Is that why all the shelves are empty?" "Yep," I answered. "We just had a huge rush of college kids. They're our biggest new demographic. I sold 1 million fidget spinners this week. We're swimming in financial liquidity here." He shook his head like a disappointed father. "This is sad, Jack. And pointless, I might add. You're going to lose the business sooner or later. The question is, will it be under a mountain of debt, or will it be with a golden parachute? Because if you don't take my offer, you'll only have yourself to blame." I think he was surprised to see me grab the sheets and pull them closer to me. I read them over quickly, and then took my pen and scribbled a signature onto each page, where it was marked, and handed them all back to him. He looked where I had signed the name. "Go screw yourself." I even initialed each of the pages with a nice cursive little GFY. "I don't need your help, or your money. I love being poor. It's awesome to me. It's my favorite." The doctor tossed the pages back onto the counter. "Broke ain't always so easy, you know that. Say, whatever happened to them crutches you were using anyway?" I smiled. "Don't need them anymore. I got a super cool new prosthetic leg. I am now more cyborg than you'll ever be." "That sure sounds like it was expensive." "No, actually. In fact, I didn't have to pay a penny. The whole thing was covered by some anonymous wealthy donor who wanted to..." I stopped as the realization abruptly hit me. "No." He laughed in my face. "You son of a bitch. How? No, forget that. Why? Is there a tracking device or something embedded in it? You know what? Never mind. I don't even care. You want it back? Take it. I'll take it off right now and give it back to you and let you know exactly where you can put it. Please, please, don't. I'm not sure what would happen if I felt any more sorry for you. I might just blow a fuse." I tried to come up with a good comeback, but he didn't give me enough time. He just laughed and kept laughing until he had left the building. Rosa came by early that afternoon to help decorate the gas station while I made the effort to do some cleaning. It had been 3 whole days since I'd seen O'Brien, and to be honest, I was really looking forward to being able to talk to her for more than a couple minutes. I wanted to make things look a little more presentable for the occasion, and even took the liberty of sweeping up around the cash register. There were a few shreds of paper in the dustpan when I finished, which were probably the least interesting bits of garbage I'd collected. But as I went to toss it, something caught my eye. A circled word written on one of the strips of paper in my own handwriting. Jack. It took me a second to remember where this had come from, but then it clicked. A month earlier, that night I tore the page of random words from the radio into 1,000 pieces of confetti paper and tossed them into the air. As usual, I had done a lousy job of cleaning up my mess, but now I could correct that mistake. All I had to do was dump it in the trash where it belonged. Why wouldn't I, right? It simply wouldn't make any sense to do anything else. For some reason, I felt compelled to put the dustpan on the counter and pick through all of the shreds of paper, which I then laid out side by side. Some pieces had whole words written on them, some were less, and some had only a letter before being torn off. L Ends die. Fig et your free. Don't jack tit. It took me a second to arrange them properly. Altogether, the message was clear enough. Let your friends die, Jack. Don't fight it. Hey, how are you with blowing up balloons? Rosa called to me from the top of a stepladder. She was hanging streamer paper with a big, dumb smile on her face. I swept the pieces of paper off the counter and stuffed them into my pockets, then went to help with the rest of the decorations.